Hi, my name's Andy Rourke and I'm the designer of Coalitions. In this series of videos I'd like to look at the strategies of playing the different nations within the game, and in this episode I want to look at France, who is the biggest military power in the game. So France is the biggest military power in the game. In this scenario, the 1805 scenario, France starts with 5 armies on the board, but it has a further 2 off board that can be introduced to the game. The French player really needs to get all 7 armies on the board as soon as possible. There's 2 ways of doing this. On the Wheel of War, when France is in this area here, it means this general symbol means that they can introduce from off board onto any territories they control any number of generals that are off-board. So if you have 2 off-board generals, you can bring them both on. It's not just one only. The other time you can introduce generals is when it's in movement. So this is the movement phase. When France can move, you can introduce an off-board general into the capital, which can then subsequently be moved away. So you want to take both of these opportunities to always make sure any off-table generals get on the board as soon as possible. Once on the board, you want to make sure that your armies stay as strong as possible. So you can have up to 3 unit tokens with each army, and France really needs to make sure that all their armies have 3 unit tokens at all time. So that's really one of the top strategies for France, is you have to stay as strong as possible. Don't let armies get whittled away and leave them off table without reintroducing them. Get them back on as soon as you can. Then France needs to be aggressive. You need to decide where you're going to go, if you're going to attack Austria, if you're going to attack Prussia, and then you need to commit overwhelming force. Your opponents can gang up against you, so the Prussians can always move to support the Austrians, but you've got to hope that those 2 players are not going to cooperate as well as possible, and you can use whatever type of diplomatic tactics you can apply to try and prevent people ganging up to resist you. But when you move in, if you move into a territory to dispute it, to contest it, make sure you've got as many other forces in bordering regions that can support the army. So this can take a bit of careful planning. You want to make sure you can get all your forces there at the right time. Leaving garrisons in territories means that they then become controlled, and you can move on a single turn. You can move up to 3 territories through controlled regions or controlled territories. So let's say, for example, if we're here at the moment, this army from Normandy could move 1 through Picardy, 2 into the Palatinate, and those 2 moves only count as 1 as a reserve move because they've moved only through controlled territories. So think about using that kind of strategic movement to your advantage when you're attacking, and garrisoning areas to use them as stepping stones to go through. But France must be aggressive and attack with overwhelming force. So concentrate your forces. Spain, Britain is likely to want to get into Spain. There's up to 3 influence points available to Britain. And that's one of their places that they're likely to feed armies into. They're going to want to garrison these to gain the influence points. France can't allow that to happen without at least trying to disrupt it, because if Britain is allowed to establish their 3 influence points here, each turn on turn, they're going to be gaining those points, and they're going to start going up the influence track. And when you get to 40, it's victory. So you really need to at least allocate 1 army into Spain if you're sure that the British are committing into Spain. You may feel that you want to allocate at least 2 and try and contest Spain and take Madrid for yourself. If you can win Madrid in a contest, force the British out, and flip this with one of your tokens to garrison it, then France will gain the influence because there's a red and a blue stripe in Madrid. So all of a sudden this has really turned the tables now, and Britain's going to need to do a lot to get that back. Britain really needs to deny Madrid to Spain. It's quite important with the way the influence works. So this is a crucial region. France always needs to at least think about disrupting it. You can't just let the British sit in there and gain that influence. And one of the last things I would say as a French player is you need to think about who you allow into your coalition. Britain can form coalitions, and nations are often keen to join that. So can France, and it can be through intimidation, because you can't bribe them with any subsidies like the British can. But if you threaten to invade someone, you might find they suddenly want to become your friend. Be cautious of who you allow into your coalition. If you want to invade, say, Prussia, and you're perhaps right on the doors of taking Berlin, and then suddenly Prussia becomes a coalition member of France, so that you become allies, you can no longer attack it. You can't take Prussia, you can't knock them out and force them to neutrality. So you need to really think about who you accept, because once they're in your coalition, you can't kick them out. They're free to leave whenever they want to, but once they're in, they're in. So be cautious about who you allow in. Be sure of their motives. So those are the main strategies for France. One other thing to think about, in the 1796 scenario, France has the ability to go to Egypt as a one-off special action where an army can move from France and land in Egypt, because Egypt is contested between Britain, France and the Ottomans. This can be really good. 3 influence for Egypt, so it's really strong. If you can hold on to it, you can gain quite a bit of influence. But what it will do is it'll set the Turks against you. And remember, this is mainly a negotiation game, and making sure you can keep some allies in diplomacy is really important. And the Ottomans, because of their location on the map, are a fairly natural ally towards the French, because the two find it difficult to interfere really with each other's affairs. And so you can allow your the other power to do things without worry of affecting yourself. So France can often look to the Ottomans as a natural ally. So if you suddenly turn up with a French army in Egypt, you may lose the only ally you've got on the board. So you need to judge what the Ottoman stance is towards France and whether it's worth going to Egypt or not. But there certainly is quite a bit of influence available if you can get a French garrison into Egypt. That's just one other thing to consider. So if you have enjoyed this video, please feel free to watch the other 5 in the series, and you can add any comments of your own into the comment section below. Please subscribe to the channel, and you can like my Facebook page at Form Squared Games. Thanks for watching.